Hey guys, welcome to Actions Detrimental. I'm Denny Hamlin, driver of the number 11 FedEx Camry this past weekend at Watkins Glen. My co-host, Mr. Jared Allen.
Red vest number 311 this past weekend at Watkins Glen.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going good. Excited to be here.
I'm so excited to be here. Truly excited. Where do we start? You want to go to some Xfinity?
Sure, let's talk about Connor Zilisch winning in his Xfinity debut.
Yeah, that was super impressive. We kind of saw the ARCA race. I saw some social media buzz during and after the ARCA race, and it was like, wow, won that stage the first X amount of laps by 15 seconds or something. And it was like, yeah, but there's like 3 cars that are capable of winning, maybe 3. And so you can't take anything really from ARCA just because of the haves and have-nots when it comes to equipment there and drivers and things like that. And then so when you've got that Xfinity race coming up, it's like, all right, well, the true test will be, there'll be some good drivers in that Xfinity race, and you're going to get a kind of a gauge of where he's at. And man, he was just lightning fast. I think he was the fastest car on the racetrack 90% of the laps that he was on the racetrack. So that includes practice, that includes the race. I'm in the bus watching, and I see the lap times, and even when he's out front, and when you're out front, you're not running 100%. You're just kind of maintaining a gap at that point. I mean, he's still gapping 3 to 4 tenths a lap over whoever the second place car is, and it really didn't matter who the second place car was. So ultimately, really, really impressive what he did on Saturday, and even late in that race when he had some adversity, driving through the bus stop. I have no idea what Ty Gibbs and Sam Mayer, it was Sam Mayer, right?
Yeah, Sam Mayer was in second.
And Zilich were doing. Like, never, ever can you blow through the bus stop.
Zilich probably just saw the first 2 guys and was like, I'm just following them. I've never been here, right?
Yeah, he's got the most excuse, I guess you could say, for doing it, but no idea what they were doing with that. Just lost the focus there, and with those 3 went to the back. I was looking, they're in the mid 20s, and it's like, man, it's over. I mean, they're inside the last fuel window. Yes, they're gonna have a little fresher tires, but it's just not gonna mean that much. And I mean, he drove to the top 5, I think, in about 10 laps. It was something just ridiculous. It wasn't even close. And so I haven't seen a butt whipping like that in Xfinity in quite some time. I can't remember the last time it was someone that was that much more dominant over the cars around them. You've seen cars lead 100 laps, but never be that much faster over second place. So that is super interesting to me. And obviously speaks to how good of a talent he is.
Yeah, what's more impressive, the fact that he was the class of the field in the Xfinity race, or that he was able to save fuel and reach the finish line?
Well, I think someone like him, being as fast as he is, has the most room to save fuel, right? If you're that much faster than the field, you will be able to run quite a bit less gas, talking about throttle down, versus others, and still run the same lap time. So I actually think it makes it easier for someone like him to save fuel over the field because he's got such a gap of speed. Typically, when you start saving fuel, your first avenue of doing that is just when you go into the corner, you're letting off a little bit sooner, right? And you're delaying throttle a little bit more. And then suddenly you're starting to run a certain percentage down the straightaway. He didn't have to change, he could change more and still get more lap time out of it because of how he was approaching the corners itself. So I think actually his speed allowed him to save more than others. And certainly when you were watching on TV, knowing that all he was battling at that point was his fuel tank, I thought they would have backed him off more. He maintained about a 4 to 6 second gap over second place at that time. I think it was Sheldon Creed. And you're watching the throttle. And again, I'm not watching on SMT, but I'm watching on TV, and it's like, man, he's running. Yes, he is backing off early, but I wonder why he's not running park throttle down the straightaways, things like that. But he got enough. I mean, he still did burnouts and all that other stuff. So it was amazing to see.
Did you think that was possible? I remember I walked out of the bus with 30 laps to go, and I asked you, I was like, is it possible to save 2 laps of fuel? And you're like, it can be done. But then there were also cautions. There were,
well, the caution came with like 6 to go, right? So that saved 6 full green flag laps from being run. I don't know how many actual green flag laps they ran in totality from that point. Now, you had caution laps, usually at a track like that, you're probably getting 2.5, maybe even 3 to 1 because of the elevation changes. You can really coast at Watkins Glen a lot. So let's just say you're getting 3 to 1. They still ran. I mean, they did have a red flag, but they probably ran 4 laps of maybe 5 of caution. Let's just say that's 2 green flag laps, and then a half a green flag lap here and a full lap there, and 2 more on top of that. So it was it worked out to where I think he probably wasn't going to make the next one. I think the whole field probably wouldn't have, other than those that had pitted later. But wow, it was super impressive to see. Yes, the fuel mileage, and you like to see it pay off the right guy on the right day, right? And certainly I thought the Xfinity race paid off the right guy. And certainly in those fuel mileage races, you have a chance for things to just go haywire, the whole field start running out, and then, you got chaos, almost like we had at, Nashville.
So now here's my question, is that obviously he's very good on road courses in Xfinity Series. He was very good in the truck at COTA a few months ago. Is he a surefire success in the Cup Series, or is there just still there? Is he still to be tested at more points in his career?
I'd say it's probably surefire, just because he's got enough experience on ovals, right? He still did quite a bit of oval racing as well, and certainly if you look at the results in the competitive series that he's run, he's still, he's not as fast over the field when we go to ovals, but he's still competitive, competing against veterans that have been doing it quite some time. So will he go win 12 races next year in Xfinity? No, I don't think so. But, I mean, could he win 4 or 5? Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a very feasible goal, considering, the car he's in and what he's going to be capable of.
Is racing similar in driver development and talent development similar to other sports? Like sometimes we see great college football players, and then they get to the NFL, and it's like, well, he didn't work out. He had all this hype in college, and they get to NFL, and now they're playing.
And it's so hard to say, because I mean, we've had many Xfinity champions win 8 races, right? And then next thing you know, they get to Cup, and it's like, wow, they're struggling to run 23rd. That's just part of it, because that step is such a big one. But I was looking at lap times versus Cup drivers in similar equipment in Xfinity, and it was not close. Now, if you want to compare, like, well, how does it stack up versus SVG, right? Is SVG surefire going to have success in Cup? I would say no, it's just simply because the results on oval still quite isn't there yet. And it's because he doesn't have the experience in it. If you gave him 3 more years of experience, he's going to make light years of gains, and it'll look like he's been running on ovals his whole life. But I think Connor's got a leg up on, if you had to ask me to pick one of the two, Connor, just because I think he's more versed in the ovals than what SVG is. But I think, when you look at, what their capability is on road courses, I consider them equals right now. This is just my opinion right now. Maybe SVG a little bit. Let's just pretend this is an outlier. This is possible. Even SVG, while winning his very first Cup race, still didn't just win every other Cup race he was in, right? So I think let's see what the next time does. But right now, I would give Connor the leg up just because of the oval experience he's got on SVG.
I would also say, like, Jared, you talk about a college player to NFL. The difference is we kind of know where Connor's probably going to be driving in Cup Series, whereas, like, college football, you can get drafted to a bad team where we kind of know Connor most likely is going to be at Trackhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that certainly is we wouldn't be talking about this if he wasn't in a good car, right? I think if he was in an average Xfinity car, he probably would have above average results, but it wouldn't have been a tail kicking. So yeah, certainly as long as you stay in equipment that is capable of winning, you're going to look really, really good, especially when you stack on the talent level on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, how old do you need to be to get in a Cup car?
I think it's 18, I think.
Which is why he just turned 18, which is why he could finally race Xfinity, right?
Oh, so it's the same for both. It's the same age for both.
I believe so.
Well, all I know is that Trackhouse seemingly has 4 drivers.
Again?
And 3 seats. So a lot of pressure.
Hey, there's
on
nothing
those
wrong
guys.
with competition. Nothing wrong with competition. That's the beauty of it is you're investing in young drivers, and you've got your veterans there that are going to hold down the fort until it's time for the young guy to move up. And at that point, you try to find what's the best. What's the best 3 drivers, and you put them in there and you let them run.
Do you think there's any chance that Red Bull comes back to the sport with SVG and now?
I don't think so. I think this is more of I saw where he had like a helmet deal or something like that, very similar to SVG. I don't think so, but you never know. Certainly, they're trying to build some relationships there with the group, but I see it as more of a personal service thing.
Let's talk about the Cup race. Connor Zilisch had a great weekend. Yours was kind of the opposite from the start. Mm-hmm. What happened there on lap 1?
It looked like the 7. Corey just hit the rumble strips a little bit wrong, and it shot him into the door of the 8, spun out the 8. Stack up ensued, and then Priest ran in the back of me. I was going to go around the outside of him, and then Priest hit me so hard it knocked me sideways and into the wall.
On lap 1 there, are you like, just let's get through this cleanly?
Yeah,
like, that
it's people. Why I laid back at Atlanta, right? It's because of this stuff, and then it's so frustrating. Certainly from my standpoint, this is 3 out of the last 4 events that I've crashed out and had nothing to do with it, and it was somebody else's doing. But what can you do? This is racing, right? This is it's part of it. But certainly it's discouraging to not get a chance to race. I mean, we worked really hard overnight to try to make some changes to the car that I thought were all going to be positive. Didn't even get to try that out. Like, had I had maybe a lap or 2, I wanted to see, is this going to be better or is it not? And now we're going to be guessing for next year. So, it's just not ideal. Lap 1, and just nobody's willing to give in on that first lap just because how hard it is to pass.
When all this happened, did your mind go right to worst case scenario? Like, man, we're gonna have to win at Bristol now to keep
surely. Absolutely. As I'm pulling out of the dust, I'm thinking, well, I don't know why I'm surprised, and now I just got to go win Bristol. So, you never know what can happen. Certainly during the course of a race, but I was thinking throughout that weekend, let's get the best capable finish that I can on the day, and I'll still give myself a really good chance of going there and performing well at Bristol and getting in. When I got crashed, and certainly I didn't see the 12 car, but I knew my car was junk at that point. I'm thinking I'm going to finish in the mid 30s or high 30s again, and we're going to get 1 point, and then we're going to have to go win. But
that's not what happened.
No, I mean, luckily, these guys are all a bunch of idiots, and that's a joke, and can't hold their cars straight on these late race restarts. And so NASCAR is making it a brand of just being a late race restart type of racing, and when we have it, it's just tearing up a bunch of and it's obviously this is the one time that I was able to capitalize on that and finish 23rd.
Yeah, but somehow also your car was able
destroyed.
to stay in one piece. Like I'm not surprised that they could fix it and drive it after the first wreck, but the second wreck, I mean, that thing looked like it was destroyed after that.
I have hit a lot of walls lately. I mean, it's amazing, and certainly yes, I think I was very lucky to not hit another wheel on the second one. The way that it backed in while hard, it then spun around and hit the front end square. And so, yes, very, very fortunate that, the entire FedEx pit crew team, mechanics, road team kept that thing going. They just did an amazing job of getting that car rolling in a straight direction.
I think that's an underrated thing is we always talk about the pit crews with the stops. That's what they're counted on for. But yesterday with just fixing the car, those things kind of go unnoticed, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's largely the responsibility of the A team, as we call them in our in NASCAR racing. And your A team is usually the guys that do not go over the wall. They're the ones that are preparing your car during the week on the setup plate. They're underneath mechanics and interior cockpit mechanics, things like that. They will go to work on it. They'll hop over. So the pit crew will get the tires changed to make sure you got 4 tires with air in it. Then they'll hop over the wall. And then the second group of mechanics will come over who, those are the ones that are wrenching on your car during the week. They're the ones that are wrenching on your car during practice. So they're the ones that are always roaming around until race day. And then they go behind the wall, and then you see the pit crew on Sunday.
The fact that this was Watkins Glen, a road course, did that help give the team enough time to fix these? Yeah. Like if this was on an oval, I imagine that you probably would have been multiple laps down.
Yeah, it sounded like there was significant enough damage on the left rear where, I mean, I heard the grinder get out. Anytime you hear the grinder, it's not good. I mean, so I guess the toe link was probably bent so bad that it had that thing pinched or something. They had to grind it in half and then take it apart. But they were just very prepared. And these are the moments that really matter. And, actually it's funny that FedEx is on the car because we've done a bunch of things about being prepared during natural disasters and what can, ruin your business and whatnot. And, we come into this situation and it just showed how prepared our team was for this type of situation, and it kept us in the game.
Yeah, I guess they had all the necessary equipment at the pit box. Like none of it was at the hall. Like the way Denny's been racing the last couple of weeks, we need to keep this stuff close.
The way Denny's been racing, it had nothing to do with any of these crashes.
The way these races have turned out for us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, qualifying.
Does he still have the dog? Yes or no? Okay.
The amount of tweets I received yesterday.
Man,
we'll get into that, but Lulu's catching strays from everyone.
Yeah, and now it's leaked over into the team. The team is now taking this dog seriously.
I thought you were going to get a serious
butt
chewing.
So did I.
You want to tell people what happened after the race?
I mean, my life flashed in front of my eyes for a moment. Because I'm sitting there, so drivers pull on pit road after the race, and you get out of the car and you're walking around looking at it, and I'm taking photos, whatever, taking video. And then Gapehart walks up, and he's standing there for a second, and he looks over at me, and he's like, "Come over here, we got to talk." And I'm like, "Oh, like." He doesn't sound funny. Like he doesn't sound humorous.
You didn't listen the first time. He said, "Jared, get over here."
Yeah, because I was like, "Wait, what? Me? Like, what's he want with me?" And he pulls me over, and then he says, "You too." I'm pointing at you. Get over here. And I was like, "Oh boy." I have no idea what he's going to say, but it doesn't sound good. And there was no reason for it to sound good, right? Like, you guys just finished poorly. You know, everything that went on in the race. Obviously, I did not think it would be anywhere near of what it ended up being. And he says, you got to take that dog. Someone's got to take that dog. Either you take it, Austin takes it.
He definitely wants to explore removing the dog off the premises for 1 week and see what happens. But Chris Gabehart, an avid listener of Actions Detrimental, he doesn't believe in luck a whole lot. He believes in being prepared and things like that. And I agree with him. But holy cow, the results are not good with Lulu so far. I don't know what to do. Just auction her off on social media or something.
Yeah, she's up for adoption.
And what did you say? What did you say, by the way, to you got to take the dog for a week?
I said, how about we give it to Ron?
You did. And I'm thinking, I'm like, take this dog to Ron's house. Yeah, I don't know if that's a good idea. I'm not really sure.
Can we give it to another driver that maybe isn't aware of this bad luck?
I don't know.
Chase doesn't listen to the podcast, so he has no idea.
Which Chase?
Elliot.
Oh, I think he does.
Well, he said in the past he doesn't. Also, I don't think Ross does, so maybe give it to Ross.
I think he does too.
But anyway, if Chris is listening, yes, I thought I was getting a royal ass chewing.
And instead,
I respect the hell out of that guy.
Well, did you do something wrong? Like, why were you worried?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe too many jokes on Denny's social. I don't know.
Yeah.
You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you, and time is running out on this deal. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/Denny to download America's #1 sportsbook. 21 and older and present in North Carolina, full price of NFL Sunday Ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after free trial. No refunds, terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Gambling problem? Call 877-718-5543 or visit morethanagame.nc.gov.
Well, that was that. There was more than the first incident. My car was destroyed after the first. I had front end damage and rear toe link damage. They fixed the toe link. I said my car was driving kind of funky. They got out the alignment plates. If you saw, like, during one of the other pit stops, they had these plates they put up against the tires. We're getting technical this week, but what they're trying to do is check the alignment of the tires to see, are they all pointed kind of in the direction that they're supposed to be pointed. And so they then fixed the front end of the car, and at that point I was like, okay, all right, this is much better. It's still not good, right? There's still some things out of line, cameras are off, things like that. But it was at least competitive enough, I felt like, to run at the back of the pack. Like, keep up with the pack, maybe pass one or two cars, and then just, hope for attrition at the end. And then we got in another wreck, and that was the icing on the cake. I will have to, I got to defend myself a little bit with Letarte and others and Burton, because they says, I stayed 3 wide there. If you go back and look in turn 1, I was actually side by side with the 21. So the 21 got clear to me, and so I didn't choose to go up there because I was side by side with the 6 and the 5. I was up there because I was letting the 21 go into the corner. Like, you don't want to run side by side into the S's. Well, then the 6 and the 5 jam it in there on me late, and then, well, yeah, I'm 3 wide top, but I can't hit the brakes enough to let both of them go. I mean, at this point, as a driver, when you're 3 wide, I know this isn't an official rule, but the code is whoever's ahead usually kind of has the right of way. And if you're the last car of 3 wide, let's just say you're in the middle or you're on the bottom, and you're the one who is got your nose the least ahead, you should be the first to back out. And I know that that's not going to happen, especially in this situation. It's hard to pass. Everyone's fighting for everything. But I was the furthest ahead of all the cars. I didn't even see them. So I'm thinking at the most, leave a little bit of room here. Someone's going to back out. And they didn't, of course. And so TJ Majors came up to me after the race and said, well, just so you know, the 5 washed us up into you. And I said, oh, okay. All right. No problem. Because I kind of gave Brad a little bit of a hard time when he was coming to lap us one of the laps or whatever. I just didn't get out of his way as much as I got out of others' way because I was ticked off about it, right? Like I didn't even see him; he was barely there, and it spun us out. But then I watched the replay, and I was like, the 5 did not slide up at all.
The 5 is hugging.
He's on the bottom.
Yeah,
he's on the bottom, and so I just thought that at that point, and I said to TJ that if you're barely in there 3 wide, like it's on you to lift. I was ahead of you at the time. So it was unrealistic for, like TV said, for me to just back off. And I was already backing off, letting the 21 go. And then the 5 and 6 jammed in there. So I can't just hit the brakes and let all of them go in that moment.
But can't you just take a wider line through that turn? Like I'm thinking about this is you're the car who has significant damage. You're the one who desperately needs to get to the finish of this race.
Yeah.
Why even put yourself in a position where this could happen? Because these guys are clearly faster than you.
Not that much. Not that much. They were behind me for 4 or 5 laps in a row.
But because of penalties on pit road, they went to the rear.
Yeah, but everyone's running the same speed for the most part. When
Despite
I say the same speed within. Yes, because when I went back out after they actually fixed the front end and the back end, Chris was saying that's within a half a second of the leader. And this is when I was on the other side of the track as them. So I've got open racetrack. He's got open track. I was within half a second. If you're a half a second faster than someone, they're not going to really pass you. And so the 6 at the time, the 5, they were in the back. We're all fighting for position. Yes, they were faster than me. My car had damage, but again, they could have passed me a lap later also. So, but I think they were battling side by side, and when I checked up, it kind of just put us 3 wide. And so, you have a valid point. Why didn't I lift? It's because of the marbles that were up on the racetrack. I had to stay in somewhat clean racetrack to keep from hitting the marbles, then just slapping the fence as hard as I could. The track was so slick outside those 2 grooves that, which is what we saw with the Byron and Logano incident. There was just nowhere to go. I had to get in the raceable groove. I just didn't expect to, for everyone to stay in the gas.
Yeah, I guess it was a good thing it was as violent as it was that you got a legitimate caution out of this and was able to get back to pit road. Otherwise, I assume you're probably limping it around on a green flag lap. And again, your race turns out very differently if that's the case.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, we didn't want to damage the car more by any means, but I mean, the caution came out because I pounded the fence. Yeah, pretty hard. And so, it gave us an opportunity to then come in and work on it again. So it was just a demolition derby for us.
All things considered, on the 11 teams day, I'd say it was, you didn't win, but it was a win, all things considered, to be -6 going to Bristol.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, it's certainly very, very doable. And I think that, somewhere in this, in the 5th to 12th, someone's going to have a real bad day. It always does. There's always attrition in that Bristol night race. And so I don't think really anyone's safe except for the Bowman, Cindric, Bell. I mean, look at the top 5. Logano, Bell, Cindric, Bowman, Suarez. Oh, my gosh. Like, I didn't think any of those guys were in the top 15 in points. Bell was. But Bowman, I'm not sure. He was
right around there, right around 10.
Yeah, I thought he was 10th or so. Yeah, you're right. So Bell was like, what? Go ahead.
After Indy, Logano was 15th. I just pulled up a recent one. Cindric was 19th. Suarez was 17th. This is after Indy.
That's how volatile these playoffs are. I mean, especially with you only got 3 races to get in or out. You could end up flipping this whole thing to where everyone that was up top goes out, and then you've got all the guys over the longer stretch of 25, 26 races were in the teens and 20s battling for a championship.
Yeah, I think
it's crazy.
What you just said is that somebody between 5 and 12 will have a bad day at Bristol. I think that's why Blaney was so disappointed after not being able to continue this race after the lap 1 incident, because he probably knows, like, hey, just because we're plus 29 here, we're not completely in the clear. Despite going to Bristol, a track I'm sure Blaney's just fine at.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Blaney, Larson, Byron, Elliott, I mean, all those, Reddick, all those on performance, yeah, you're going to say, oh, they're fine. It just, nobody's not having incidences right now. And so I love the fact that we get to go there on the offense. I'm going to be on offense the entire time.
It's so funny, though, that you look at these drivers and you look at what they said, post-race. Obviously, Blaney said what he said. Byron got in a wreck late with Kozlowski. He was unhappy with the day as a whole. Obviously, he finished in the mid-30s. And then you, on the other hand, you have the day that you have, and like you're leaving thinking like, man, like I'm excited to go to Bristol now. And these other guys I have a feeling that they're like, man, I'm nervous about Bristol.
It really changed for us, right? We went from thinking we were going to have to win to, oh, we just got to be ourselves.
Right.
And do what we normally do at Bristol. So that's why I think the mood switched so quickly between probably 15 laps to go in the Watkins Glen race to the finish is all that happened in between that. I probably gained 13, 14 points. I went from being like minus 20 to minus 6. Like minus 6 ain't nothing.
Most of the race, you were floating around like that minus 15 range, I felt like.
And at that point, like you're going to need to really run well and then have multiple with issues, which it's just less likely. Now we can just go there and run well and get in.
So what do you need? Take out the win part at Bristol. What can advance you?
What do I think will advance us?
Yeah.
You can start with a good qualifying day.
Yeah. I mean, qualifying will be important, certainly. But I think, I don't know, just run top 5 all stages, finish top 5 in the race, get a 47-point day or so. That'll be plenty.
Before we move on.
But I'm not. I plan on going there and winning.
So Milo's going and Lulu's not? Can that help?
Maybe Travis, that's what needs to happen. Maybe has Lulu been to a race since you picked her up in St. Louis?
No.
Maybe just need to like cleanse her, like bring her to a track and just like.
What first race to take your dog to than Bristol?
Chris would be awful mad if he saw that dog and things didn't go well.
Yeah.
We need to discuss this offline. It's the same shame because she's growing up really nicely. She's behaving well, starting to behave really well. Potty training's getting down really nicely. Milo's done a good job of raising her.
Well, Milo had a great what do you call it? He was trained well.
Yes. Yeah. He went through the gauntlet. Absolutely.
What do you make of Blaney's complaint about how NASCAR handled his car or the decision?
I mean, they went by the rules. I'm not saying he's wrong and NASCAR's right. I'm just saying they went by the rules. Is the rules fair in that instance? I'm not sure. I mean, what they're trying to avoid, right, is that we were spending as race teams lots of money on crash carts, repair carts, and all the we would have to take these things to the track, and it would have essentially a full body and components of of the car, and have to bring it to the racetrack, and then I know they brought up that it's kind of unsafe. That's whatever. This was a cost cutting measure, is to not force us to have to repair the car and then send it back out on the racetrack. It could cause a caution from debris or whatever it might be. So it was one of the cost cutting things that got brought on years ago. By the rule, it's the right thing. I mean, should we knee-jerk reaction just change it just because there's an uproar? Absolutely not. This is a unique situation, and I don't think they would have got it fixed anyway. It seemed like this was a steering issue, and so for them to fix this thing, it would have taken quite some. It would have been more than the repair clock, because he was in the incident. There was contact, so it didn't matter, and that matters. That part matters. Had he had something go wrong, and yes, they could have fixed it in 2 minutes, and he'd been back in the race, then there's more of a legit argument. But the damage he did incur was race ending.
Rules are rules.
As far as I know.
Rules are rules.
So rules are rules. And don't keep changing rules because it's people react to it. It's just sometimes you're on the good end or the bad end. And certainly I've been on the bad end more than enough.
What happened with the tires? Why didn't we see as much wear as what we thought going into this race?
Once you put 36 cars out on the racetrack and all of them have the same tires, it fills in the pores of the racetrack, and then it stops wearing. It just seems like whatever there is in practice, the wears just get 30% better or whatever it might be, 50% better. Certainly they lasted longer on race day than what they did during practice. And I'm sure they lasted longer than what they did during the test. So it just shows that NASCAR or Goodyear can get even more aggressive. I really liked the tire at least did drop off some. It did have some fall off. So whatever, it is possible. We thought for the longest time, Goodyear always used to tell us it's the surface of the track. If the surface of the track isn't a certain type, it's not going to wear. We clearly know now they are capable of building a tire that does create wear. And so this is definitely a win for us to try this. And it certainly shows how much more aggressive they can possibly get and hopefully take this to other racetracks.
So does that mean that when you do these tire tests and you have wear in a test, then the tire should be adjusted to wear even more, considering that you're going to have rubber on the track?
Yeah. So if it lasts, I think at the test it was lasting like 15, 20 laps. I think it was lasting 20 laps before it really started to wear out. And then in practice, no one really wore one out. But so I'd say at practice it lasted about 20 laps as well. In the race, that number probably was up to 30, right? And so, you need to make one that wears out in 12 laps or 15 laps. And if you do that, then certainly you're going to have enough drop off in the race to really create those comers and goers. But the problem is that everyone kind of pitted around the same time. And so they all fell off at the same rate for most everyone. There was some passing, but certainly you got to get them to the point where people start to see cords, and then you're going to see the Bristol effect.
Like Gluck tweeted, I don't know what happened to tire fall off thing. The race leaders, Chastain and SVG, last pitted on lap 17. It's now lap 52, and cars with fresher tires can't pass them.
Yeah, it's clean air matters a lot. I mean, this car is a challenge.
Did the rumble strips also get filled in? I think I heard them say, like Ty Gibbs or somebody talk about how that wasn't as rough because of rubber laying down. I'm
not really sure about that. It certainly got cleaned off more. so the dust and the marbles and whatnot got blown off. Certainly after the Logano kind of got out of shape there, got into the 6. The 6 then hit the 24. After that, they blew the racetrack quite a bit, and I think it just the racetrack cleaned off quite a bit. And then so I just think, generally speaking, it was just track position matters. This car has been a challenge to pass in. It always will be unless there's some sort of reconfig. And as an owner, I don't want that. They didn't necessarily get it right when they designed it. And so, we're trying to fill in the gaps through tires and things like that. So we're making gains on it. It's just certainly it's better than what we had last year, where we were all running the same lap time over and over and over for endless laps. So this is an improvement on that.
On the way to the airport, you were watching the race finish on your phone, and you were like, "This was our finish? This is how the race ended?" It seemed like you were pretty impressed with Chris Buescher's last lap.
Yeah, certainly. I'm as equally impressed with his last lap as I was befuddled of SVG's. I thought you give SVG the lead on the last lap, he's just not going to make a mistake, and he's disciplined enough that he's not going to make a mistake. But this was caused by two things. One thing that's not talked about enough is that the run that Buescher got through the S's to get close enough to threaten SVG. So if you look coming off of 1, SVG actually has a decent lead there. And then I think he just got offline slightly through the S's, and I looked, and at the top of the S's, the 17 got a really good run on SVG. And at that point, is SVG just kind of looking in his mirror, managing the gap, or did he make a mistake there as well? But I think that was the key moment that allowed him to think about how he's got to get through that bus stop quickly to gap the 17. The 17 was not within striking distance until he got to the bus stop. And at that point, SVG made a mistake, and he got too close to the barrier on the right. I think he made slight contact with it. It got him slightly offline. And at that point, he missed his apex and got off into the over the second half of the bus stop. The 17 hit his marks and got a good run off, and it was all over after that. So I think that what's not being talked about enough is how did the 17 close enough through the S's to then threaten the SVG into making that mistake in the bus stop.
So this all occurred before even entering the bus stop.
Yes. Between turn 1 and the bus stop, the 17 closed enough to make SVG think. And it made him, make a mistake there, in my opinion.
Does the 17, I'm just watching this replay over and over again, and it starts when they're coming through that long chute, so I can't see, turn 1 and turn 2 and up through the S's. But when Buescher gets to the bus stop, is he kind of like borderline Hail Marying it through here, knowing that he's got to get to his back bumper by the end of this?
So I'm looking at the same replay you are. What it shows there is he's got like a 1.5 car length gap to the 17. You're looking at the one that Travis put in, right?
Yeah.
It happened before this. There were 2 turns that led up to this to allow the 17 to get that close. He was not that close coming off of turn 1. So again, there was something that happened in the S's. I'm sure I could look at it in SMT to see where it was, but I think SVG made either another slight mistake there, or the 17 executed a flawless S's to get within that striking distance.
Right, but if SVG doesn't make any mistakes to the bus stop, I imagine he wins this race, right?
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
So it's this mistake when he enters the bus stop, but also I'm curious of when Buescher exits the bus stop here, there's a little wiggle in his car when he exits. Is that just because he's trying to take the best possible line and it's
so
stuck?
Yeah, when you look at his in-car from Buescher's standpoint, he had a fast enough run where he was like thinking about just going around the outside, and I think at that point he's like, no, I can't go the outside. SVG is going to wash me up into the marbles. It's going to be over. I've got to force myself down low at all costs, and that's, he just had barely enough momentum to switch directions there to get to the inside of him.
But to answer Jared's question, it has to be a Hail Mary, right? Because what does Buescher have to lose? To your point, Denny, you always saying like second place can go harder because they know what they have to do. So Buescher probably was doing everything on the verge of.
Don't take me wrong on this. Buescher won it, but SVG lost this race more than Buescher won it. There was a combination. There's a combination of two. You cannot stay close enough to SVG without absolutely doing a phenomenal job, and the 17 did that, and he closed in the S's for whatever reason. Either he did a great job or SVG did not do a good job, and then SVG made a mistake, and that's what cost him the victory.
Now, I know nothing about...
Which is rare. So rare. I mean, I can't think of a person, put someone in the lead on a road course last lap. You're going to pick SVG 100 out of 100 times, but you're human, right? It's high stakes, and people make mistakes.
So I know nothing about driving Watkins Glen, obviously, but watching this longer replay that Travis sent me, the only difference it seems like to my eye in these two guys' drive is that SVG goes way wide through the rumble strips out of turn one, and Buescher keeps it much tighter to the actual racing surface. Is that the difference in the time he was able to make up entering the bus stop?
If you give me like 30 seconds, I'll give you the real answer, because I'll just look it up and you'll be able to see more of a visual. But I don't know exactly. I just know watching it back on TV, I was like, oh, this is what happened. It was the S's. It was not the bus stop. It was the S's that got him back in. Oh crap! I can win this. So
we're not live, so if you don't take that 30 seconds, you can.
Upon further review, I have looked at SMT. I switched my answer. When I said that SVG lost it more than what Buescher won it, I'll say to you that it's 50-50. It is, because the 17 executed a flawless S's. I mean, he beat SVG up the hill at the top of the S's. Let's see. He was, let's look at this. He was 17 hundredths of lap time off of SVG entering turn 2. Entering the bus stop, he was a tenth ahead. He gained 2.5 tenths through the S's to give him a chance to get to SVG there. So
Can you see in that SMT data how that differs from the average lap that either of these drivers have run? Like, was that
not
Buescher's
really,
best
because
lap of the day?
it was a green white checkered. So that would take more time than I'm willing to do right now. But I thought maybe that SVG got offline or something in the S's. He didn't. He hit his marks there. It's just the 17 did better. He had more grip or whatever, more throttle, definitely at the top of the S's, and that's what, I mean, he closed a huge amount right before they got to the bus stop. So, wild, man. Wild finish, great finish. Certainly great for TV, certainly awesome for Chris and his whole team. Yeah, it was cool to see. Such a great call by Lee Diffie again. I just want to try to nominate him to do 38 races a year. Can we somehow figure out that?
We had a great finish, but Martin Truex Jr. was very critical of some driving at the end, the back of the field. What'd you make of Martin talking about how people were just driving into people?
I mean, I think that Martin's had this gripe for quite some time. that it's different now than what it used to be. There's certainly, not a whole lot of respect amongst the drivers, especially in these green, white checkered situations. We see it over and over, year after year, and it just keeps getting a little worse each year. But there's just no regard anymore. If there's a quarter of a car width wide, someone's going to jam it in there in turn one, and just if you spin, that's not their problem. And so there's just not enough accountability, I guess, for that. If you think that someone caused a wreck, then you need to self-police this thing and make sure that they know that this was for that incident or this, whatever it might be. But certainly it seems as though it's not going well at the end of these races when it comes to green, white checkers. It's just, guys are running over each other for one spot here and there. So there's not much you're going to do to change it. Martin just saying, I'm done, I'm out of here. It's just quintessential Martin Truex.
On the flip side, at the end of stage one, you were racing for the lucky dog. You said in your in-car radio, thanks, KB, you're racing against Kyle Busch. Did he do you a solid, or did you beat him straight up to get that?
I think he had damage like I did, but I also think he did me a solid.
He had damage. There was tinfoil all over the back of his car.
I know. I could see behind me, like he would get runs in certain places. Now, again, I think his car was damaged enough where he didn't feel confident jamming it in there and getting side by side with me without taking risks, because my car was still okay under braking. But still, I could see that he was being patient, and so certainly appreciative from my standpoint, because I thought he cut me a break.
We're running out of what other drivers owe you one, because we're using a lot up right now, Denny. We had BJ last week, Kyle this week.
Taking all the handouts I can get. Bristol, I'll take all the handouts I can get. I'll put it down on a card and write you a Christmas card saying thank you. All handouts are welcome.
Headed to Bristol next week. What do you expect? Are we going to see a similar race that we saw in the spring?
I don't know. Truth is, I don't know. Now, let's just pretend this was the spring. Conditions are the same. Tires are exactly the same. I think the teams would make things better automatically. I don't know how long they lasted. Was it like 50 laps or something like that in the spring? Let's just say it was 50. I think if we just went back and made adjustments to our cars, we would all get 65, 70 laps out of the tires. So I don't know that we're going to see the extreme of Bristol like we had in the spring, but we could see somewhat of a version of it. Or would we all be shocked if we just showed up there and there was no tire wear whatsoever?
I don't think we'd be shocked.
No, no one would be. I wouldn't be shocked. So, because this tire is the same tire that we ran here last fall, that there was no tire wear issues. So, your guess is as good as mine.
Are you going to know in practice, though? Are you going to know?
We should, yeah. The difference is Xfinity is running with us this time. Xfinity was not there last time. And again, the more rubber that gets put down on the track, the less wear becomes an issue. So I just believe in my heart of hearts that not having Xfinity on the racetrack before us last in the spring had an effect on the tire wear on Sunday. And with them being on the track this time, if there's no rain, I just think tire wear will not be as big of an issue.
Book it. There's not going to be tire wear this weekend. The way you make it sound, I'm going to lean towards there's just not going to be any.
I think there'll be some, but not like the spring. I just don't think so.
Well, we don't necessarily want it like the spring, right? You want it a little less than that.
Yeah, we want it just a little less than that. Absolutely. You want to be able to run as hard as you want.
I thought after that episode we said don't change anything, and we wanted that.
No,
because we knew an overreaction was coming. Like, listen to the Dale Jr. download and all them. It was like, oh no, now, that was a cool race, but no way Goodyear is going to be okay with that. Because we know the next step is just, let's just put a harder tire on it. Because that's usually what the knee-jerk reaction is. We didn't want that. And it sounds like, hopefully, they didn't. But they're the ones in charge of the mixture of those tires, and you just never know how much they change it.
And who pissed in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that guy didn't get fired.
I know.
And he's still around. Or whoever it was. Whoever was responsible for that.
Denny, do we have an updated pickleball power rankings?
We do. I don't know. I mean, since you dumped your partner Lance, you definitely got better.
I didn't play great
I put you
last
at a B
week.
plus.
I honestly think,
or I put you at a B, and then you got moved to B.
I think I'm still at a B.
Oh, you're fighting for the lower rank.
I think I was inconsistent.
Is it because you want a better partner, don't you? You want one of those A partners?
I mean, listen, if you want to give me like Steve or Jeff, I'm perfectly fine. Like, I'm good with that. But no, I think I'm right in there. I'm very inconsistent. So at times I'm a B plus. At times I'm, drop off.
Yeah. I mean, would you consider me and you the same then?
I would say yes, but you're more consistent.
That's what
I would say. I'm inconsistent, if anything.
That's what I want to know here, Travis. Is in your opinion, are you a better pickleball player than Denny? Doubles pickleball is a sham. I've been on that train for a long time.
What do you mean it's a sham?
How's it a sham?
1v1. It's the only way to play these tennis pickleball games.
But it got
Ping
to where I
pong.
was like skunking you in one-on-one.
Sure, we're not talking about that. We're talking about you versus Travis.
I would play Travis one-on-one. Let's settle it next time.
Okay.
All right.
But
1v1 if you. Now I'm not going to tell you because you'll shave points. You'll you'll lose on purpose. I'll say if you beat me, then you go B plus. If you lose, you're B.
Oh, I'm not gonna. I don't care about the ranking. I want to win. I'm not gonna throw.
No, you're already over here politicking.
I'm not gonna throw a match against you for make believe ranking.
All right, sounds good.
But Jared, it's not a scam.
It's a what?
It's not a scam. Like
I just enjoy singles way more. I fall asleep playing doubles.
I'm trying to. I tried to make it to where we're grouping like fair teammates because the captain of this league, he has just a random generator, and it would be like 2 A players versus 2 B. It just wasn't.
I don't believe that app is. I think one of the best players created this app because it was always the same. Like the best people getting paired together.
Yeah,
Travis, you host another Dirty Mo podcast that seemingly ranks drivers on all things. Why don't you just plug these pickleball players into that thing and spit out?
It can't. I think the rankings are pretty accurate as long as we pair the top with the bottom. You can't have 2 tops play against 2 bottoms.
If you have 2 A plus, then you're just
I had A plus rankings, A's, B plus, and B's, right?
Yeah.
A plus A, B plus B. I have one other racing related question before we end this podcast. I got an email from Jenny Lee Dadul, and it says, "Please dumb it down. I'm a new fan. Please explain the playoff process to new fans. Point, stages, wreck." So I want to know in 120 seconds, can you explain this playoff process since we're entering a cutoff race to new fans? This is an intro to NASCAR 101.
Jeez Louise. In 120 seconds?
Well, I don't know. I just know that if I give you the floor, we'll be sitting here for 20 more minutes talking about the playoff process.
That's fair. It's not a lie.
I've got a timer.
Okay. Now, I'm going to look at it myself to make sure I try to... Okay. 120 seconds. 36 drivers start the season. If this is a win in your end format. So if you win a race through the regular season, you get in the playoffs. You will automatically be one of the top 16 drivers. If you do not win, you need to be one of the drivers who makes it in on regular season points, and you can accumulate those points by either your finishing position throughout a race or certain stages of the race. So there's always 3 stages to the race. Not always. There's one race that has more. But you get 10 points for winning a stage, and then you get 9 for second, 8 for third, on down to 1 point for 10th. So you get these points that you accumulate during the race, and they all go to a season total for the first 26 races. And if you don't win a race and automatically lock yourself into the playoffs, at that point, then you this is going to be extremely hard to do in 2 minutes. You need to be one of the top drivers in regular season points to make it in the playoffs. Once you start the playoffs, it's 10 races, and then you have a 3-race season. So after 3 races of the playoffs, they knock out the bottom 4. You run 3 more races, knock out the bottom 4. Run 3 races, knock out the bottom 4, and then the bottom 4 compete for a championship. Whoever's the top finisher of those 4, then they are the champion. I have 20 seconds to spare, but I'm missing lots of details, such as your points that you accumulate in the regular season.
If you win, you automatically advance to the next round.
You automatically move to the next round. Points that you accumulate through stages and race wins are bonus points that also carry into the playoffs, that also carry into each round. It's way too freaking complicated. And that is my summary. And my timer.
What was that sound you have for your timer?
I don't know.
Like a meditation?
No, I got to change it because it abruptly wakes me up too much. Like when I say I take an afternoon nap, which is very rare, it's too, like, it's all in your face way too early. Like, I like alarms that come in soft, in hard.
I can't tell you the last time I set an alarm.
What?
I wake up without an alarm in the morning.
That's a guy that doesn't have a real job.
It's a guy that wakes up at 6:37.
Man.
If you go to bed at the same time every night and wake up at more or less same time every night, you don't need an alarm. You will wake up.
I get it. Yeah. I've gotten more sleep now, according to my Whoop, than I've been getting. I've gotten myself up to, I'm averaging 7.5 hours a night. Certainly, I think it's such an important part of recovery. Like, my body, I felt, pretty worn yesterday, a little beat up. And I knew that, like, if I just got at least 8 hours sleep, I would wake up with my body not aching as much and feeling better. And it does. It's crazy how the human body works with recovery. Like, overnight while you're sleeping, it's just repairing itself.
Yep. So Jenny Lee Dadul, if that's your name, because now that I'm reading this email,
I bet you she's more confused now than when she
Yeah, right.
started.
If you're more confused, feel free to reply and follow up and ask more questions.
So the bottom line is that it's too freaking complicated and you can't explain it in 2 minutes.
Apparently.
I mean, have you gone to our driver's meeting and looked at just the normal race procedures video? Like, if you actually paid attention to it, if you're a casual fan, there'd be no chance. You have no chance.
Right, but I feel like once you understand,
you definitely have to. Yeah, once you understand it, yes, it's easy. But there is lots of rules and lots of procedures and things like that, and it has to be. It's just motor racing is a sport that has to have procedures and things like that. But it makes it really, really hard for a casual to come in and know everything that's going on.
A lot of sports have that though. Too. I mean, what is a catch in football?
Well, college or NFL, 2 feet
See,
in
I'm saying
bounds,
like
1
no,
foot
but
in
I'm saying
bounds.
like there's a lot of rules that are just.
A catch, to me, is you can see it. The guy's got his hands on the ball.
But there's how many times do we see it and they say
I
it's
understand,
not,
but if there's a review, right, that they've got a rule analyst and they've got knowledgeable people in the booth that are saying, okay, here's the rule. They must complete it by having total control, inbounds. So they explain it in that moment.
But we still see after review a call and the rules official in the booth's like, I don't agree. So I think
I agree with
every
you.
sport is can
agree.
be difficult to understand.
I agree.
What drives me crazy the most about this sport and the playoffs and the points is the live ticker that we're going to see this weekend at Bristol during stage 1 and stage 2, because the ticker is assuming that the driver is finishing the stage. If the ticker's in stage 1, it's assuming that the driver is finishing the stage in that position, the same position in stage 2, and finishing the race in that position.
Is it? I've always wondered that.
Yes. So the ticker, unless I'm completely wrong, and feel free to blow up my mentions if I'm wrong, but I don't think the ticker is realistic and accurate.
Someone
until
from
you
NBC hit me up on this, text me. Is that true? If so, it's knowledgeable for me because we're going to see it through Xfinity and truck playoffs and things like that. Right. And I wonder if Fox's is the same.
I'll ask Letard on Dirty Modell.
Okay. So you're saying on lap 10, what they're showing is assuming that's the straight finishing position, and they're going to give you stage 1 points and stage 2 points of where you are.
That is what I am under the assumption of, yes.
That's how I saw it too. I could be wrong.
Because I kept having me and Austin were going back and forth in the bus.
Jared, what's a better solution?
Well, there isn't one. I just want you to understand, people watching it, that this live ticker is not super accurate until we get to stage 3, where points through stage 1 and stage 2 have been accumulated, and now it's just based on finishing position.
Okay.
Yeah, I wish during stage 1 it only is just those points and not projected win. So like if you're in second place, Denny, it's showing you for 9 points added and not.
I mean, the only thing that you could do is just not assume stage points and say, if they were to finish, this is what it would be. And then after every stage, just add it to the totals of the players, right?
Yeah.
They could do that. But yeah, I don't know. There's just not a good way to do it, I don't think.
No. I think the way they have it is fine. Just be aware that like when you're watching this race, if you're a Denny fan, these points are going to look weird until we get to the final stage, and stage 1 and stage 2 points have been accumulated.
Basically, if you're up front at the beginning, it's showing the best case scenario.
Yes. Yeah, because we were watching it in the bus during stage 2, Austin and I was like, well, it's showing you being like -5. And he's like, oh, that's great. I was like, well, it's not really realistic because like Truex is down here and he's going to end up here at the start of stage 3. He's probably going to finish here. Then he's probably -16.
And one thing we didn't talk about, and you mentioned it before we started rolling, was that, look at all the non-playoff drivers. Well, that just tells you those who sold out for the points, I mean, you just can't make it back up there. It's so hard. So the reason the results showed such a unorthodox top 10 was basically those are all the cars that flipped the stages. And everyone that didn't was then just trying to battle for, let's just try to get to the low teens, right? That's a win in our group of cars that decided to pit or decided to stay out and get those stage points. So that's the way road course racing is, unfortunately. Really, there's not really a way to fix it, short of going back to no stage cautions, but that is not good for TV, not good for anything.
You mentioned earlier that you get to go on the aggressive now. How refreshing is that? Because obviously Atlanta, we know the strategy there. Watkins Glen, we know. Like, are you like just ready to get to Saturday right now, or where are you at?
Yeah, like for me, I feel as though like, okay, now we're going to a track where I call it a let-off oval, right? We're going to a track where teams and drivers really, really matter. And it's not that it doesn't matter at Watkins Glen in Atlanta, but Atlanta, it is really kind of a crapshoot of where you end up and do you get caught up in the wrecks. And certainly Watkins Glen, I had nothing to do with what happened other than qualifying badly. But the wrecks can happen anywhere. I mean, William Byron had nothing to do with getting nearly turned over in the fence, but he did. So it just seems like if I could, I always said if I can get through this round, then the playoffs really start. Yes, you still have the Roval, you still have Talladega, but you also got Kansas in that round. So it's like you at least we knew. Jeff Gluck went on a rant about this schedule a year ago when it came out. He was like, they're wanting top seeds to fall out. They think that is a good thing to have top seeds fall out because it creates drama. What it doesn't do is it certainly, I don't know if it rewards being elite throughout the season as much as it should. But it's just, this is the format, right? And they've dumbed it down to these 3 race seasons and then put tracks in there where it has been very volatile as far as whether you control your own destiny or not. But Bristol is one where typically you control your own destiny. Kansas, now Talladega, no. Roval, in between. It's like Watkins Glen a little bit. But then after that, we start to get to tracks where you're going to see the cream rise to the top. And while the standings might look like it looks right now with the top 5, if they get to the round of 8, you're not going to see the same cars up front. It's just you've seen a bigger enough sample size to know who's capable of running fast on a typical oval racetrack.
Yeah. There's just less variables. That's
less variables. There you go. There's less variables at those tracks.
Yeah. Well, we're going to one of those tracks this weekend. I got a review here from Riley 6 Vera, and they say, Denny, I think I'm the problem. The first race I watched was Darlington, and I became a big fan soon after. I was in person at Sonoma and had just gotten your diecast before you blew up. Twice I started watching your in-car, and you got wrecked around 3 laps later. Next time I'll turn off the race. Send my apologies to Lulu.
Well, appreciate it. It's not your fault. It was great to see during my Q&A so much 11 gear at the NASCAR experience. I appreciate all my fans showing out. It was a great turnout for you guys this past weekend. I definitely took notice around the race car before the race. Lots of people with Denny gear surrounding the car. Appreciate y'all. It does not go unnoticed. Try to sign stuff for you when I can, when I have the opportunity to. But yeah, we're going to hopefully get out of this slump here starting this weekend, move on to the next round, win Kansas, move on to the round of 8, and then start this run all over again.
Yeah, I was disappointed to hear that you don't have any stage appearances at Bristol, because I always look forward to those stage appearances and the signs that they have in the crowd. And I guess you don't have any. You don't have a stage appearance this weekend.
Yeah.
Nope.
It's one of those hostile environments, isn't it?
Fun hostile.
They got to put chicken wire up.
I mean, how hostile is it? Somebody's throwing a cucumber on the track. Like, if that's your definition of hostile, then you've got it pretty good.
All right. Well, hopefully, let's be in a better mood next Monday. How about that? Let's just say, let's just get through this round, get through this adversity, give our fans something to cheer for. All in nation. See you next week.